Hello to everyone, welcome back on my YouTube channel. In the last weeks I've been extremely busy testing and studying the new Rlaarlo Rally car, and as you notice here in, let's say, my office, everything is ready for this review, which is going to be divided in three parts. We are going to analyze the design of the chassis, we are going to see the test drive that I did on a RC Rally track and on some good bashing on a pump track, and then I'm going to share with you my thoughts about this RC Rally chassis, and we are going to work a bit on the setup. First of all, I would like to say that this RC Rally car is very well made. I'm not talking about the details, but I'm talking about the overall design and the quality of the components. During my testing, I had a lot of crashes and nothing happened. Not to the suspension arms, not to the underplate of the chassis, nor to the body. We can see some scratches here and there, and this confirms that the high quality of the materials that Rlaarlo used. Here we can see two models because Rlaarlo is releasing two different versions of this RC Rally car. Later on we're going to see how they change. By the way, we have a metal version and a carbon version. The metal version is the one that you can see here completely disassembled. I disassembled the chassis in order to show you in an easier way some key features that is hard to see when the chassis is completely assembled. Like Rlaarlo cared about the details, we have a sway bar in the front, in the rear. Take a look how they work. We have a front differential, rear differential, we have a central differential. Yeah, as you can imagine, there is a lot to say about this chassis. So this is the metal version, the one that we are going to analyze, and this one is the carbon version, the one that I use for the testing. Is dirty, I didn't clean it, so we can see if the dirt is able to get inside the mechanical parts of this chassis, and we can see if something got damaged, but I don't think so. Okay, let's focus on this chassis. It weighs around 2 kilos and 200 grams, and the weight distribution is extremely well because it's almost 50-50. If I'm not mistaken, by the calculation that I made, it's 51 in the rear and 49 in the front, which is really good because in RC Rally we are trying to stay around 50-50. Because of that, the car is easy to control in the corners, and each time the wheels are not touching the ground because the car is jumping and the surface is not regular. Almost always when it's landing, all the four wheels are touching the ground almost simultaneously, and this weight distribution is achieved thanks by the position of the electronics. The engine is not completely on the front, it's not completely on the rear, but it's almost on the middle of the chassis. Now let's focus on the starting end of this chassis and how Rlaarlo was able to achieve this result. The underplate is already quite sturdy, but on the top of the chassis we have a triangular structure that allows the underplate to be much more reinforced. Having a sturdy chassis like this is a very good thing because during your RC Rally season, or during, let's say, your RC season, if you are doing bashing, RC Rally, Rallycross, you're not going to worry too much about the underplate bending and causing some trouble in the driving. Then focusing on the shock tower, they are also very robust. They have many holes that are going to allow us to change the angle of the dampers. Also on the suspension arms that are extremely robust, we can see that there are some holes also to make some changes in the setup. But now let's focus on the, let's say, key feature of this chassis is the fact that we have not only the front and the rear differential, but we have also a central differential. Thanks by the central differential, using a light gradation of oil, we are able to, let's say, change completely how the model behaves, and we are able to make it much more easier to drive in slippery conditions because the power of the engine is going to be constantly transferred to the wheels that have less traction, And in this way, the car is going to be, of course, easier to drive, but also in tight corners, it's going to be much easier to rotate this RC model. And that's very important because in RC Rally, it's important to be fast in the corners in order to make a good time. I focused too much on the chassis because it's extremely well made, and I forgot to talk a bit about the body. Of course, the body was the first thing that I noticed while opening the package of this RC Rally car, and it's full of details. I really like the headlights in the front because they are very well made. Also, we have a very nice cable management. But the feature that I liked the most was the light placed here in the exhaust that simulates the fire, the bangs of a real rally car. And all these details, especially this light, once you drive this RC rally car, let's say, they makes this experience much more enjoyable. Okay, now that we know how this chassis is made, let me show you the highlights of the testing that I did. I tested the carbon version, it came with a more powerful engine, and I tested it in RC Rally conditions, so on a stage, and in bashing on a pump track. Testing this RC Rally car, I had a lot of fun, and as a RTR model is something amazing. This chassis, in my opinion, has a lot of potential. In bashing is perfect, and in RC Rally we need to work on some detail. One thing that I didn't like a lot is the servo. Even if it has a very good quality with metal gears, except for the first one that it's in plastic, but it's not a problem because usually is the less stressed one. I think it's a bit too slow, and it will be better to change it. And if you want to improve the performances of this RC model, making it more enjoyable on a RC Rally course or in bashing, in rallycross and so on, I would like to suggest you to change it for a fast standard one. And this is going to be possible because Rlaarlo is going to release some upgrades that I'm going to show you here, which will allow you to change the servo in a quite easy way. Since we are here talking about the upgrades of this chassis, let's deep dive into this topic. And let's talk about something else. While the wheelbase is 257mm, which is quite standard for this kind of RC scale, this RC model is quite wide because we have a track of 216mm. But luckily that's not a huge problem because Rlaarlo is also releasing suspension arms, shorter suspension arms and shorter drive shafts. So we'll be able to mount different bodies. Talking about the body, is attached to the chassis in 4 points, here on the front, on the rear and on the sides. All of these points of attachment are easily removable, and Rlaarlo is also releasing another upgrade that will allow us to mount the bodies in the standard way with the normal towers that we have on the market. I'm going to work on the setup of this chassis. I'm going to show you how it's easy to disassemble some key components, and meanwhile we're going to see the differences between the carbon and the metal version. Rlaarlo provides, together with this model, a 2200 mAh battery, free S, and now we can focus on the differences between the metal and the carbon version. Here we can see the structure that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, that it's reinforcing the upper part of the chassis, making the underplate extremely sturdy. Then, talking about the differences, on the carbon version, the structure that unites the front and rear differential cover is made by carbon, and here is made by aluminum if I'm not mistaken, and then the suspension arms are reinforced with carbon, as you can see here. Meanwhile, on the metal version we don't have this kind of reinforcement. While talking about the differentials, here in the metal version we have a regular gear, meanwhile in the carbon version we have a spiral one that we're going to see soon. Okay, let's work on the chassis. I decided to change the differential oil. I feel like the front and the rear has the same gradation, and because of that the rear is not that much easy to control. We're going to put 8000 in the front, 10,000 in the central differential, and 2000 in the rear differential. This is just a test. It's the first step in order to understand better this RC model. And now let me show you how it's easy to disassemble it. I know it's quite dirty, but I want to see together with you how the differential looks if some dirt was able to get inside them and how much they are worn out. Okay, let's start from the front. First of all, we need to remove the bumper. It's quite easy, just this free screw. Okay, now let's work in order to release the front differential. I need to create some space between the differential cap and the drive shaft, in this way. Then we need to release the front sway bar, and after that we can release the front differential that is held by 4 screws. And in this way we have access to the front differential. As you can see, the gear has a different shape. Then let's move back. You need to separate the rear differential case in order to disassemble the rear differential, but also the center differential. Okay, here we are. We can see that inside the rear differential it's everything extremely clean. So it means that the dirt is not able to get inside here. That's quite important. Okay, now let's release the central differential. Okay, I just removed the screws that are holding the central differential, and I want you to notice that it's clean. Of course there is some dust, but in general I don't see any small rocks inside the differential case. So, front differential, rear and central, they are clean. All the mechanical components are not presenting any damages that can be caused by small rocks. Here we have a bit of dirt, it was not a rock. And this chassis comes without a upper cover, and I think it's perfectly fine because all the components are sealed by these cases that they are doing a quite good job. I think that we gathered enough information, and I'm ready to share with all of you my thoughts about this RC Rally model. I'm going to show you also a few other things in order to make this video as much complete as possible in order to answer to your questions. So, first of all, I'm going to show you in a fast way how the differentials differs. Here we have the carbon version and here the metal version. As you can see, one is regular and the other one has a spiral. If we talk about the size of the wheels, these are the wheels provided with this RC model, and these are the standard 1 to 10 scale RC wheels that we use in general. Because of that, because of the design of the suspension arms, it's not possible to fit a wheel that has 0 millimeters of offset because it cannot turn. But if we put a wheel with 6 millimeters of offset, we don't have any problem. It should turn without touching the suspension arm. And okay, I think now I can share with all of you my final thoughts about this RC Rally model. In my opinion, this is an amazing product with an amazing quality, and also the design of components make sense. Right out of the box, it's very fun to drive. This is an amazing basher, and comparing this RC Rally model to his own category, so I used to call it like this because it's a bit bigger comparing it to other 1 to 10 scale RC models. It's on the top. It's on the top. It's very well made. Rlaarlo is going to introduce the different suspension arms in order to make it narrower, and I think that you can also use it not only for bashing but also for in a competitive way for racing. Of course, if you are talking about RC Rally or some other competitive way of using this chassis, check the rules of your championship in order to see if a model like that is allowed to take part. And the only thing that I don't like is the servo. It's a bit slow, but you can change it without any problem, and it will be nice to increase the steering angle. I'm planning to make another video with this RC model where I'm going to modify it in order to, of course, change the servo, to increase the steering angle, and also to fit another electronics. Maybe I will fit a motor, a brushless sensored one, in order to have more control on the low speed. And what else? I'm going to repeat myself. This model is amazing. I really like this product, and buying it, you're going to have a lot of fun. If you have already your RC car for the competitions, this is something to have beside it in order to have some good fun and to think out of the box, doing some crazy stuffs. And yeah, I think that's all. I really hope that you enjoyed this, let's say, unusual review where this video is ending with the models completely disassembled. Let me know in the comment section what do you think about this new Rlaarlo Rally car, and see you next week for a new video. Ciao!